The Midwife Crisis podcast will touch on sensitive topics regarding the human body, sexuality, pregnancy, and all aspects of women's healthcare and may not be suitable for all listeners. Bonjour, I'm Kate.
You're French?
Sometimes.
Since when? Hola, I'm Piyar.
Hola.
And yes, I do speak Spanish at home. And this is the Midwife Crisis podcast, Microsode, the podcast where you learn it's not just you.
I always learn that. This Microsode, fun ones, are where we answer listener emails, readdress previous episodes, and, just give you a little taste of us between our larger episodes.
Today we'll discuss how we want to dip our toes into some larger waters. We're hoping for lots of feedback from you guys out there before we take the deep dive into the murkier parts. And we will explain that as we go on. But speaking of deep dive in murky waters, I'm going to sidetrack just a moment on the topic of water and swimming. And did you know that a lot of Black people, women in particular, don't know how to swim?
I did not. I didn't know that, but we just were in Louisiana and we went on a kayak trip, and there was a person of color that was male, I believe. He didn't tell me, but I'm assuming. And he flipped his kayak and he was like panicking in the water, but he had a life jacket on and he was okay and he was fine. But maybe he didn't know how to swim. I was just thinking he was panicked because he was like in the bayou, but maybe he didn't know how to swim.
You mean in the bayou afraid of alligators?
Right, exactly.
Probably that too. But for those of us with any kind of hair, long hair, short hair, especially from not so much more recently as it was, the previous generation, my generation, we didn't go in the water a lot because we couldn't get our hair wet because it was styled in a particular way, and that would ruin our hairstyle.
Oh.
We went through a lot of trouble to get our hair straightened and to get it all done up for whatever occasion or just on a regular basis. And once you let the rain hit it, you let the water hit it, anything, it just undid the whole thing. And so that meant no swimming.
I don't think I ever noticed that. Although, maybe in a similar fashion, my Nana used to get her hair set once every week or 2 weeks and also could not get her hair wet. And also I'm not sure if she knew how to swim. So,
well, probably a little bit different, your Nana. But anyway, I didn't learn to swim until I was 50. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So my best friend, Francis, who's also in book club, we signed up for a kayak trip with some friends of ours from the hospital, from mine. Now they're her friends too. And they said, we're going kayaking. And I said, I want to go. And they said, you can't come. You don't know how to swim. Almost taunting me. And I said, I am. I'm going to put my money down and I'm going. And they said, you can't swim. You're not. So I talked her into doing it and we put our money down and we signed up for the kayak trip. And then we said, oh, snap. We don't know how to swim.
Oh my gosh.
So we had to take these swim lessons, which we did very intensively. And the woman who taught us was a wonderful teacher. She had been a swim teacher, a swim coach. She had swam competitively as a child. And at that point, hair was not an issue for me. And I'll explain in a little bit why. But we learned how to swim, and then we went on this trip in the Caribbean kayaking. When we told the entire group, who was from across the United States and Canada, that we just learned how to swim, they all rolled their eyes and went, oh, because they felt that we would hold them up with the kayaking and with the snorkeling and with all the water activities. And so because of that, we did something really evil. The first time we got into the water, we said, oh, the water's really cold. And we put our toes in. And I said, I don't really know if I want to. And then, my hair is long and it's going to get wet and take a long time to dry. And people were like, we could hear them like putting their heads together and talking about us. And Frances doesn't have this problem with her hair. She's not Black. Anyway, so we kept going in the water and kind of squealing like you do when you don't want to get in. And then finally we took a dive and we just started swimming. And they all said, so we went for a swim and then we swam way out far and we swam back and they said, you guys swim like fish. And how did you learn how to do that? And then we said, you doubted us, did you? So it was very interesting and fun and that's sort of a side story.
I love
that. But this is real. This struggle with the hair is real for us. And so this is some of the murky waters that I'm talking about, just sort of misconceptions and miscommunications and perceptions that you have that may not be accurate about the one or another community. Mm-hmm. And so that's sort of a long way around, the whole conversation that we're going to have, spend an entire episode on. Yeah. Speaking of the whole hair conversation, one time I saw you and I said, why is, it's kind of cold outside and why is your hair wet? Like you were rushing like that to come in with your hair wet. And you said,
I said, it's not wet, it's greasy.
Yes. And I was stunned. I said, it is? Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I was like, I'm on like day 3. And you were like, oh.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, if you don't wash your hair for 3 days, that's how it's going to look. Meanwhile, we don't wash our hair. And some of us, if you have some extensions or some weave in or something, it might not be 3 months. Yeah. So it's just very interesting, the whole cultural issues around hair. And that's not what our whole episode is going to be about, but it's just sort of, this is us dipping our toes into the water on cultural discussions.
Yeah, actually later that night, we were celebrating PR's birthday and having some apps and having some laughs. And I said something about, remember when you had your braids? And she said,
I never had braids.
She said, I
haven't had braids since I was like a youngster.
And I was like, no.
And I didn't know you then. You weren't born.
I was like, no. You had those long braids. And she says,
they were locks. My hair was locked. It wasn't braided, which if you've ever had locks and you're a person, anyone who's ever had locks, especially a person of color, it takes a lot of work to get the locks going, to get them started, to keep them going, to groom them and care for them. And you're very proud about that. Yep. A braid is just 3 parts of your hair braided up. Yeah. And so that doesn't take a whole lot of work. And I took a little bit of aback. I was like, my locks, there was a lot of work that went into those. And you called them braids.
And I thought that I had this misconception that, for me, I would be like, I think of dreadlocks as sort of like fat and sometimes frizzy and things like that. And I didn't, they were so clean and perfect and all exactly the same, thinness. And I just didn't know. And I think we definitely laughed about it and we said, okay, here we are twice tonight having, sort of hair misconceptions. And they were such a surface, issue, but it brought to light the fact that we both think of ourselves, I think, as pretty, culturally woke for each other. Like we're very like
we try.
We're buddy and we try, and we still were like, what the hell? We don't know, we don't know anything.
Right. Just on the surface, the things that we don't know. Yeah. Which for a lot of folks, like in my family, dreadlocks, we call them locks and not dread because we want to make sure that people understand that there's nothing dreaded about it's not dreadful hair. Yeah. And so our hair is not dreadful in no way, shape, or form. Yeah. And so we usually we say locks. But I know that I don't take offense to people saying dreadlocks because I know that that's sort of how they are, what they're accustomed to hearing. But I do, when I get an opportunity with someone I'm in a trusting relationship with, and I can take the time to explain that, my hair's not dreadful. So yeah, I just call it locks. It's okay. I'm my hair isn't like that right now. It's just in its natural state. And it's very interesting. When I cut the locks out of my hair, people hadn't seen me without them for a long time. And they said, one person actually said to me, "Can I touch your hair?" And she didn't wait for my response.
Oh.
This person was white, and she just put her hands in my hair. And I took a little bit of you shouldn't touch people. At least that's a cultural thing for us, without permission.
I mean,
she asked for permission, and then she just
just did it without permission.
She just used her privilege and did what she wanted.
Yeah, that's
So I
uncomfortable.
So after she did that, this is really crazy. I shaved my head. I shaved it all off, and
she looks super cute with literally any hair, by the way. Shaved, no hair at all, short hair like now, dreads, like so cute, so beautiful.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I felt some kind of way about it, so I shaved it all off and I started over.
Well, you know what?
Anyways, that's sort of but those are the kind of things that sometimes people in the larger community or in the white community, they don't necessarily understand, but there are things that really matter. Sort of to us. Like you didn't really, I don't know. I guess you didn't care that I thought your hair was wet and it was greasy.
I was pretty mortified because as me, like my hair looking greasy, like you should see the stuff that I do trying to keep my hair to not look greasy. Like I'm like not going to use as much product. I'm going to do this and this type of shampoo and then dry shampoo. And then, just all the ways I try to like mask it. And she's just like, "Whoa, your hair's so wet." And I was like, "Oh God, kill me. This is so embarrassing."
Well, I'm glad I got to say that to you and not say. So when I see someone else with their hair in that state, I don't say anything. So if they go outside in the freezing cold with their hair wet or greasy
Good
or
luck.
whatever, they're on their own because I'm not in a relationship with them to be able to address it. But now I can understand that maybe it's not even wet. It's just they need to go get in the shower and shampoo it up. So that's sort of, a thing.
It's a thing.
Yeah, it is. And it's sort of a surface thing of an everyday thing that we'd like to get into a little bit more as it pertains to the people that we take care of.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
the purse.
The purse.
Do we want to talk about the purse?
I don't know. The purse is your story. So if you want to. All right. So we're going to skip the purse because we could talk about the purse when we do our bigger episode if we want to.
Okay. If you want.
Okay. I don't want to tell your story. It's your story.
Okay.
But so on our bigger episode, we're going to talk more about how issues like this affect our career and are deeply, sort of embedded in midwifery. And, for me as someone who is part of the queer community or even just by being an ally, I find that people automatically sort of assume that I'm an expert, maybe similarly to how people assume that you're an expert in all things,
Black or Latinx.
Right. And so it's sort of like a heavy burden to bear and sometimes makes you feel a little bit like almost like the little like sideshow, like people will be like, "Oh, well, we'll just ask Amanda." Because she's into that. And it's like, I mean, of course I am. I'm a part of the community and I'm an ally and I want to educate where I can, but I'm by no means an expert. And, I can definitely tell you, I certainly don't know a lot about the cisgender male population that's queer. That's not really an area that I'm super familiar with. So that's something that sort of
I'd like you to hop to it so you can give us a lesson.
I'm working on it. But that's why I'm always going to, even, my friend, Dr. Roskowski, who is part of the community as well. The two of us, two queer people went to a LGBTQIA plus, healthcare seminar because we want to make sure we're being really inclusive and keeping up on those things. And we're always learning, we're always improving, and we really need to encourage our community and our coworkers to do the same. Actually, the other day, one of my coworkers called and said, I'd given a talk at our sort of partner or, provider meeting that we'd had about different LGBTQIA plus things that we're going to start implementing in the office that are important to me, such as asking people their pronouns, asking them how they want to be addressed, and using more inclusive language when we're asking health history questions, not just assuming people have a mother and a father, things like that. And this provider was really excited to tell me that she had seen one of her patients, and she didn't realize it was a former patient. She just said, "You look so familiar. I don't know why I know you." And the gentleman said, "Well, I used to be your patient." And so she had said, we're working on trying to be more inclusive at our practice, and, remarked how we hadn't seen this patient in a while. And he had said, "Well, I didn't know you guys were like that. I just assumed you were very binary." And
That's great.
And that's something that we're really trying to change. But just the fact that the provider was sort of like able to, address that and was open to addressing that and really encouraging this person to come and, keep up to date on their care was just really awesome. But it takes more than just me, because if it was just me, which sometimes, for a while it had been, people don't know. And I have this little niche population of patients that I care for, but there's this greater population that needs to be, out there. And so it starts with what I told everyone at my job was it starts with the front desk. It starts right there. And I will tell you that there are some people who were uncomfortable with it. People would say things like, "Well, what do I tell women who ask why there's a man here?" And I said, "Well, first of all, you don't tell them anything, because
it's not their business.
It's not their business, and it's part of HIPAA, and it's part. It doesn't matter. And second of all, how many times do you see men here? Fathers, partners.
I think
really,
because they recognize that that's a trans man, that
right.
they feel some kind of way about it.
Right. And additionally, I had someone say to me, "You know what? I like that. We should be asking patients every time how they want to be addressed. Because listen, I just got a divorce myself. And when people call me my, ex-husband's last name, I'm like, no, I'm not Mrs. So-and-so.
Yeah.
And don't you dare call me that."
Sure.
So you know what? People change, things change, and we just need to be, more inclusive and also accepting. And so that was a little piece. Additionally, we haven't gone quite to this, but even like religious changes, I myself am not particularly religious. I never have been, but, many midwives in the community are. And in the past and in the recent past, there have been sort of upheavals in midwifery communities. So the MANA community, which is like the CPM community or CM community, as well as with ECNM, because there's issues with being inclusive, and that includes race and sexual identity and gender and even some religious issues. I once donated to a friend some diapers. I cloth diapered my babies, but one of my kiddos, when he was potty training, I had to use one package of disposable diapers.
Mm-hmm.
And I had extras because, thank goodness, he potty trained well.
Right.
And I needed to do something with them. And you can't donate an opened pack of diapers.
Right.
And I knew this person who works in the women's health community was like, "Oh my God, yeah, give me those diapers." And I didn't realize that they were being given to a crisis pregnancy center. And for those of you who don't know, that is a place where people can go where they're pregnant, and it makes it seem like any pregnancy, but really it's basically like an anti-abortion group. So it's basically about keeping women pregnant sort of at all costs. And because of that, I now get yearly at the end of the year a newsletter from this group. And I don't know why I do this to myself, but I tend to read it. And the one that I just got last week was about the last year, and they were talking about all the, things that they've done. And they talked about this woman who came to them who was very upset because she had been told with each pregnancy that she should not get pregnant again because she could die and her baby could die. And she was very upset. So she went to this pregnancy center who said, "Don't worry about it. You're going to be absolutely fine." And we took care of her, they said. And, she was out of work because she had all these complications, but, we paid her bills, and her baby was severely preterm, but that baby's fine. And, we kept them, together, and we got that baby out. And all I could think was, that is one person, and that is one case, and it sounds like it was quite complicated, and it sounds like she's very lucky. And these are all her choices, but to send a newsletter to all these people saying, well, forget medicine and forget, what providers told her, we know better, is frustrating to me. And
can you see steam coming out of my ears?
And I just felt like, and now who's going to be there for her premature child who may or may not have additional needs, and who's going to support her, and what happens next time when she doesn't survive, or if she doesn't survive, and what would they have said if she didn't survive? that was the will and that's the way the world is supposed to go. I mean, it's crazy. And so these are all issues that come up all the time. And the fact that I had gotten sort of roped into this by someone in my community was really like frightening to me, because I always think I'm for all people with uteruses, right? I'm for, all women and all people who have babies or, who have these organs. And yet, maybe this person isn't for those women. And it was upsetting. So
yeah, it is. And speaking of with regard to the religious community, I have had the conversation with some folks who say that is against my religion, that I would be supportive of same-sex partnerships and of anything that has to do with the LGBTQIA community and plus community. And I don't like that the hospital might be asking, are you male? Are you female? Are you, how do you want to, be your gender to be labeled or not labeled at all? And that kind of, they find that bothersome. And I have to challenge that. I try to do it in a loving way, or as in a respectful way, I should say, because I don't love everybody, but I do challenge. I say, actually, it's not your job to judge. I think that's part of the religion, part of the book you read, is that you shouldn't be judging. And so if you are in the business in whatever capacity of caring for people, even if it's administrative, even if it's front desk, if you're going to be in that business, you really should be considering that you want to take all comers and you want to be respectful to all comers, and you're not going to shun them. You're not going to throw shade at them. Yep. That kind of thing. And so I think that to not speak to it when you hear it is to be complicit.
Well, that's absolutely true. And it's dangerous, and I'm very thankful that everyone in my practice has been so receptive, so wonderful, is really trying, which is, what we can ask for really is trying. Right. But, what I told them was, it is actually life or death when you come in, if you address this person in the wrong way, because every moment of their life, they're fighting to be who they are. And by negating that, you don't know, like you could lose that life. I mean, suicide rates are very, very high in this community. Not to mention the fact that getting preventative care, such as PAPs, which look for cervical cancer, and mammograms, which look for breast cancer, are very low. And so these people are really high risk, and we need to keep them in our care circle. So anyway, these are just like some of the issues that are going on right now in our community, and something that we plan to do a very large episode on.
It may even be two.
Part
1 and part 2.
Yeah.
And it does. The water is deep, but I know how to swim.
She does, probably better than me, you guys, because I just learned by being tossed in a pool.
Yeah. No, and then kayaking, I got turned over by the instructor multiple times. And like, save yourself. Use what I taught you and save yourself. In the Long Island Sound in October. So yes, it was good. I'm pretty safe.
Good.
So I know how to swim in these murky waters, and I'm continuing to learn, because you can always get better at your skills and better at your craft and better at your treatment of your fellow person.
That's right. And we will be sure to give you guys some warnings. We know that not everyone is here for any political anything, and the world is a tumultuous place. And if that's something that you're going to want to skip out on, we'll make sure that you have a heads up at the top of the episode.
Amen. Okay.
Did you say amen?
I did.
Oh, that's our very cute new recording man, right? Is that what you said? Oh, you said amen. Oh, okay. Sorry. I don't go to church. I already told you that. It's both.
Yes. Let's go to the self-care corner.
Okay.
How have we loved ourselves in the past few weeks?
All right. Tell me.
I took a nap.
Oh.
Despite my home appearing to be ransacked. And I'm going to tell you, two of my children live on the West Coast, and one of them is coming to visit tomorrow, in fact.
Which one?
The oldest.
Okay.
So Felipe, if he showed up to, the way my house in the condition that it was in, I'm sure he'd want to have me committed somewhere because he's never seen those conditions, and he'd say something's wrong with her.
Are there jars of urine? Because if there's not, then you're probably fine.
No jars of urine, no old crusty food, but just stuff everywhere. It looks like someone tried to rob me. I'm sure he'd say, "Were you robbed? What happened?" But I took a nap. In the midst of all that, I just moved the folded clothes to the other end of the sofa, and I just put a blanket on, and I took a nap. It cleared my head. It was really good for me. I was tired, and I said, "You need a nap." I took a nap. I woke up. It wasn't an all-day nap. It was less than an hour. But I got up, and I got 3 major things accomplished. And that was the start. It made me want to get other things accomplished. And I had been dreading even getting started. And I think the lesson also is that the things we dread are never really as bad as we anticipate that they're going to be. And that doesn't just apply to housekeeping.
Yeah.
It's all kinds of things in our lives, because there are many issues that I'm working on, and, you kind of procrastinate and you put it off and you do different things. And so I'm not saying sleep your way through all of that, because napping is a form of procrastination. But in this case, it was very therapeutic. And I suggested make sure it's less than an hour, and make sure you get up and get going again.
That's amazing. I'm pro nap, definitely. So I'm very happy to hear that. So my self-care has been sort of all over the place, but I did just get back from a little vacation, that I spent some time with my kiddos, some time,
Nice.
Away without my kiddos, with just my husband. And, it was really, really awesome. It was really nice. We were away like just long enough to kind of enjoy being childless, but also long enough to like seriously miss them, and to come home and just really, really enjoy them. And, something that's coming up is PR and I are putting in some extra time now so that we can take a little break for the holiday season. And so I think for me, that is huge self-care, because there's a lot going on. And everyone's busy in that time, but especially when you're a caregiver or a parent or something like that, you have a little bit more, I think, on your plate sometimes. And it's about, sort of juggling everything, because as a kiddo, I don't think you realize that the whole world continues to go on during holiday break. I never really noticed that. I think I was very privileged to not realize that my parents were like still exhausted and going to work and doing, all the things they had to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really trying to give that gift to my kiddos as well, because I want them to hopefully, feel a little bit good about, as far as I'm concerned, the season to me is about just being with family and, spending time with loved ones and having like a little bit of snuggle time and relaxing time. And I really hope that they get that. So that's my sort of future self-care too.
Nice.
So
Very
anyway,
nice.
well, we're going to wrap up, and we're going to be back after the holidays with some big stuff. If you guys liked the episode today, that was a little taste of what's coming. We would like to thank Baobab Tree Studios, our friends, family, and you, everyone who makes this podcast possible. Please be sure to subscribe on Spotify and iTunes, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Make sure you like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at the Midwife Crisis Podcast, or you can email us at midwifecrisispodcast@gmail.com. And we super welcome those emails about anything, the good, the bad, the ugly. We're here for it. We would love even constructive criticism if you want to add anything we talked about today.
For sure, we do. We want that feedback, because we want to make this the best program that we can provide. And while we're still having a good time, we're going to continue always to have a good time.
Yep, I'm just going to cackle for most of it. So
until next time, I want you to check your breasts. My cousin just got diagnosed with breast cancer, and so I always want you to wash your hands, but please, please, please check your boobs.
And while you're checking your boobs, take a little break for yourself.
Bye.
Bye.